everybody? It's Dave here, Darren over there. We are two old bloggers, been talking publicly and commiserating with each other for over 2.5 decades apiece. Why? We've yet to win a Super Bowl. That's why. We thought this season would be the one. Yes, or at least have the possibility, and technically it still does. But do we feel that way? And we'll get to reasons why here in just a bit. But I told everybody I was going to be on a crossover show, and I want to correct that. I was on the show, but they sent me the wrong audio, so it did not get posted today, and I apologize. You'll have to go find it on Running with the Jungle, or Running in the Jungle YouTube page. You can find it there. Now, today, we're going to talk about 3 themes as usual. Theme number 1, if it wasn't for bad luck, we'd have no luck at all. Now, then we're going to get into This Week in Vikingsland, and that is quite extensive by Mr. Darren. We've got a ton of stuff to talk about, and we'll get to that. And then we're going to end up, as usual, on a high note with the Drewster, even though he plays bass, which is a low note, but we'll talk. We're happy to have him once again, 3 weeks in a row, no less. All next on Two Old Bloggers. Vikings First and SKOL presents This Week in Vikingsland with Darren and Dave, your 2 old bloggers. Hey there, everybody. It's Darren and Dave. Darren, how is everything in the Great White, or is it still smoky north?
Not smoky anymore, not white yet either. Weather's been pretty good, actually. Pretty unseasonably warm for up here. But I'm doing pretty well, but I'd be feeling a lot better if the Vikings hadn't crapped the bed Sunday night and I had to mull that over for the past 6 days, like the rest of us. But first world problems, I guess.
Yes, it is. Well, because of that game, we now have a potential quarterback crisis. Oh, no. What will we do? We're going to talk about it today as we take on and host the Cincinnati Bengals in what do they call it? Last week was the home opener, and this week is the heritage game where they bring in all the old players and they honor number 70, the captain. So let's hope this week turns out better than last week.
Yeah, now, let's put in a good performance for Captain Jim, for God's sakes.
Yes. Now, speaking of last week, let's get into theme 1. Bad luck ahead.
See, T-Bass is saying, remember both of us agreeing last year that this is a no excuses year for Kevin O'Connell. Yes, T-Bass, I do remember us talking about that. I believe that was a show or 2 after the season ended where we talked about that, or it might have even been right after the loss to the Rams. But I do remember it. I'm sure Dave remembers it. Mm-hmm. So thanks for that comment. And thanks to everybody for tuning in early in the morning, or maybe it's noon time if you're on the East Coast. But thanks for joining us. We really appreciate you coming along and all your comments. Quarterback stuff, yes. Dave, one of the things that kind of sucks a bit about doing the show on a Saturday when we do it is that if something significant happens early in the week, by then everybody's had a shot at it, right? Given their take on things. And And so on Monday, we learned J.J. McCarthy, high ankle sprain on his right ankle. He's going to be out sometime, possibly 2 to 4 weeks. And that Carson Wentz is going to start against the Bengals on Sunday. And so since that time, of course, you've got all the Vikings media, the podcasters who cover them that don't include us, our Tyler Fornes. They've all weighed in on this, what it means, what it means, and all that sort of stuff. But I'm going to take a crack at it too. It's the biggest news of the week for the Vikings. So some thoughts on this. I think the first one is that as bad as it's looked, and it's looked really, really bad with J.J. McCarthy for 7 or 8 quarters, this is still not ideal for JJ's development. One good quarter out of 8 quarters that he's played in 2 games. But, Dave, he's only, we know his growth got stunted a bit last year. He didn't get to play at all last year because of the meniscus tear, other than that first preseason game. And so, he takes over the starting job now. 2 games into it, he's hurt again. So that is, again, not ideal for his development. And he needs that because we have seen him look overwhelmed at a lot of times in the 2 games that he's played. He doesn't look like he's trusting what he's seeing. He seems hesitant in the pocket, holding on to the ball too long, making some ill-advised throws, all those kind of classic things that an inexperienced quarterback would do. But we got to find out what we have here with him, Dave. And for that to happen, he needs to play, and he needs reps, and he needs game reps. So this right now, this injury comes at, again, not an ideal time for him because he can't build off that really terrible performance against the Falcons. He's got to sit on the sidelines and in rehab and stew over that. He can't get a chance against Cincinnati and maybe the following week against Pittsburgh to improve on that and see if he can right his play a bit. So, and so this whole, now you've got a situation where he started his NFL quarterback journey last year in the offseason. It got stopped in early August. He starts it up again in the offseason. And 2 games into the regular season, now he stopped again. And at some point it's going to start again. But here's a thought, Dave. What if it doesn't start again for J.J. McCarthy this season? You've got Carson Wentz coming in, a lot of experience. Whatever you think about Carson Wentz, he's got a ton of starting experience in the NFL. And maybe this ankle injury short term comes at is a blessing in disguise for the Vikings right now, because I don't know what to expect from Wentz, and we're going to get into that a little bit later. But you got to think with his experience that the Vikings offense is going the Vikings offense is going to play is going to look somewhat better than it has under J.J. McCarthy the previous 2 games, because Wentz has seen a lot. He's played well a number of seasons in the NFL. He has a lot of experience. He should have a better idea. He shouldn't be as befuddled and confused by what NFL defenses are throwing at him as J.J. McCarthy was. And that should lead to a more cohesive and more effective offense for the Vikings starting Sunday. But here's the thing. What if Wentz plays, pretty well? Not just better than McCarthy, which isn't a high bar to jump over right now, but let's say he plays really well and he's the reason the Vikings win tomorrow, a big reason why they win tomorrow. And maybe if he plays against Pittsburgh in Dublin, maybe he plays well again. He's another key reason why they win. Let's say the Vikings let's say he plays 2, 3, 4 games because McCarthy's sitting out. And what if the Vikings go when they get to the bye, what if they're 3-2 or 4-1 with Carson Wentz having started the last 3 games? Does Kevin O'Connell just keep on riding the Wentz train for as long as it goes until it inevitably derails, as I think it would? Or does he, once McCarthy is ready to play, healthy enough to play, does he go back to J.J. McCarthy and say, I'm just going to have to, he needs to play. I'm going to deal with some more 11 for 21s, sub 200 passing yards, multiple turnover games that the Vikings probably aren't going to win because while he lets the rookie or the second-year quarterback figure it out.
Thank you.
You know,
And T-Bass mentioned that. What happens if he wins? What do the veterans think? Will it cause a schism if Kevin O'Connell goes back to, McCarthy? Or will they ride the hot hand and ride him till he fails?
And the thing about, if that scenario were to occur, Dave, the thing about Kevin O'Connell, we know he believes, I believe he's sincere in believing that JJ McCarthy is going to have a very good NFL career. And we know that he's got a specific plan for McCarthy and his development, and playing McCarthy has got to be a big part of that plan. But what is the main job description of an NFL coach? It's to win. It's to win often. It's to win Super Bowls. And so I think that if this scenario happens where Wentz is playing well and the Vikings win 2 or 3 of the next 3 games, that Kevin O'Connell is going to go with the player who gives them the best chance to win right now. And that would be Wentz, if he plays well, as opposed to what McCarthy did the first 2 games. And, it's not only that, Dave, but you look at the Wilfs, they did not, this is a roster that supposedly was built to win right now. So the Wilfs didn't authorize all this spending from Kwesi Adofo-Mensah the past 2 off seasons to watch the team stumble and fumble as a second-year quarterback figures things out at the NFL level, if there's a better option already on the roster who can help you win right now. And there's going to be pressure from fans and media to stick with the hot hand, like you say. So I think that KOC, if this occurs, and I'm not saying it's going to, but it could happen. But if you get a situation where Wentz is playing well and the Vikings go 2-1 or 3-0 over the next, or 3-1 over the next 4 games with him as a starter for however long he has to start, then I think KOC sticks with Wentz if he plays well enough and the Vikings are winning, because that could keep them in the playoff race and keep the team on a trajectory to be competitive and make the playoffs and maybe make some noise at the NFL level this year. But Anthony, and I'm going to ask Dave about that too, but if that does happen, you do have some issues where it could get messy for the Vikings, for JJ McCarthy, for Kevin O'Connell, for Kwesi Adofo-Mensah throughout the season and into the offseason. Because if JJ McCarthy is benched, what does that do to JJ McCarthy? I know he's a confident kid, but that's got to weigh on your psyche and be a disappointment to you if you're benched when you were going into the season expecting to start 17 NFL games and maybe play in some playoff games too. So how is JJ McCarthy going to handle that first bit of adversity, probably in his whole football career on the field? What do his teammates think about that, who have expressed a lot of belief in JJ McCarthy that he is the guy, but now you're going to Wentz? And also Kevin O'Connell, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, they are going to have to answer questions throughout the season and into the offseason about a few things like, is JJ McCarthy really the guy? Are you going to re-sign Wentz? Is he going to be the starter in 2026? How come you didn't retain Sam Darnold because JJ McCarthy flopped? Why didn't you bring in Aaron Rodgers when he wanted to play here? All of those things they're going to have to deal with, and it's not things that you want to deal with. And so again, not saying that Wentz balling out is going to happen, but it could happen. And if it does, I think could be a very messy rest of the season and off season for the Vikings, and something I don't think that they anticipated. Dave, want to get your thoughts on, what do you do if this actually happens and Wentz is playing well at the point where McCarthy is healthy enough to come back and play?
It's business, and the business is to win.
Mm-hmm.
I sort of agree. Like in 2017, you go with the hot hand, whether the coach wants that so much or not. And we all lived through 2017, and what a fun season that was. But we also know we're questioning, should we bring back Teddy? Blah blah blah, and the whole especially like after the Washington game when Zimmer was going, he's just lucky. He wears that big, brass balls or the horseshoe around his neck. And they kept with Keenum, and then led us to the NFC Championship game. And obviously that's happened in the past before, not just 2017, but many times in Minnesota's past, especially with number 11s. But the question is, will Wentz play well?
Yeah.
I'm not so sure, but it's possible. If he does, I think you got to stick with him. Unless there's some other reason why J.J. McCarthy played like absolute dog doo-doo last week, which he did. Now, I'm not blaming him for the injury. I've already heard. He's injury prone. Get rid of him. It was a contact injury. It's what happened. Now, I think it was T-Bass said, even though it's a 3 to 4 week heal time for a high ankle sprain, they tend to stick with you. And I'm thinking, well, that may help somewhat with the mechanics, because T-Bass was worried about the mechanics, and obviously the mechanics have been brought up this week too. He's not going to be more likely to whip his right leg out, but that's also the drive leg for passes. So I don't know how this is going to work out. So if Wentz pans out, and then we have the discussion here in a few weeks of, do we keep playing Wentz or do we bring in McCarthy? I look forward to that. If Wentz doesn't pan out, the situation is similar. Now, if Wentz gets hurt or absolutely blows it between now and then we have a third discussion, which we'll get to later, in Max Brosmer. But it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Now, hopefully the team gets healthier. It's a team sport. Flat out, it's a team sport. So, and everybody on the squad contributes. And if you can't contribute, you're hurting the team. Whether it be the offensive line, whether it be the defense, whether it be special teams, whether it be your quarterback's hurt or the coaches making the wrong call and not being aggressive enough or not simplifying things. It's a team sport. So we'll see. I'm not in a great mood over this whole situation, so it's going to be interesting.
It's not where we wanted to be for sure with this, and I'm not really too encouraged or excited to see Wentz play tomorrow either. I'm going to hope that he plays really well, but I got to say that and we're going to get into this in just a bit, but I've got my doubts.
Mm-hmm. And too evil to hope. That's funny. It could happen too. It could happen. He's on par with J.J. McCarthy so far. Now, speaking of which, let's go to this week in Vikingsland and theme 2. All right. This week in Vikingsland.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got a busy agenda here for this theme, Dave. So get right to it, and we're going to stick to quarterbacks because we just talked about the what if situation with Wentz and McCarthy, but there's no what ifs tomorrow. Wentz is playing, and the question that we're all wondering is, how will he play? And this is the kind of crack, outstanding football analysis you all come for here at 2O Bloggers, but I'm prepared for anything tomorrow. I don't really know how Carson Wentz is going to play. as I mentioned earlier, he's been in 98 NFL games, appeared in, he's been 98 NFL games he's suited up for. 94 of them have been starts. So that is a lot of starting experience that Carson Wentz had, which I think is a plus, considering, again, how overwhelmed J.J. McCarthy has looked most of the time when he has started the first two games. So you got to think that the Vikings, again, not a high bar that McCarthy has set, but you got to think that Wentz, with that experience, and he has seen a lot of defenses and seen how defense have attacked him and the offenses he has played for since he came into the league in 2016. That experience that he can fall back on, and the ability to recognize defenses and coverages and what they're trying to do and what they're trying to take away from the offense, that has got to help. And I think that's going to lead to a more effective Vikings offense. It's got to, because the Vikings offense has just pretty much been terrible except for the fourth quarter in Chicago in the two games. So that's that.
He's got basically a 500 record.
True.
Slightly over.
On some teams that, Washington was pretty bad. The Colts were so-so.
Yeah, and the Eagles were very good. And
so,
sounds like an old quarterback we used to have.
So there is that. But on the flip side of it, and if you get the guy, Dave, who played, who threw for over 3,500 yards, 27 touchdowns, and only 7 interceptions in 2021 against the Indianapolis Colts. And I think the Vikings if they get that kind of play from Carson Wentz, they should be fine for however long he's the starter. But again, that was 2021. Since then, he's bounced around. He's been, with the Washington, then with the Rams, then with the Chiefs, and now with us. No NFL team the past 3 off seasons has thought that, and in a league where a lot of teams need starting caliber quarterbacks, nobody gave him a chance to compete for a starting job. And he was sitting on the couch until late August this year in the NFL. Again, you got 32 teams, and a lot of them are looking for at least a quality backup. So, and how much
I did hear and I think he said he was offered some jobs, but he was going to wait because they were backup jobs.
So that is fair. And he got an offer that he couldn't refuse, I guess, which was coming to Minnesota, playing for the team that he used to cheer for as a kid. But there's that sort of stuff. But he hasn't even been here a month, Dave. So question is, I know that there's been talk about the KOC offense has similarities to the Sean McVay offense that he was in a couple of years ago, and maybe even with the Andy Reid offense. But Wentz said it himself in his media press conference this week. He said that there's similarities and differences. So he's only been here not even a month. How much does he really know the playbook? How much of that, how much is he used to throwing to the guys that he's going to have to throw to on Sunday? Does he have that chemistry with Justin Jefferson and TJ Hockenson and Jalen Naylor that maybe J.J. McCarthy had, even though J.J. McCarthy had a lot of other things not going for him? That is a question that I think I certainly have. But again, I just don't know what to expect from Wentz. And I think that, again, I'm expecting we could see anything Sunday with Carson Wentz, but it's pretty clear that he's going to have to play at least solidly for the Vikings, I think, to have a chance in this one, even though I don't think the Bengals are a great team or even a very good team. But when your offense is going 3 and out all the time, you're not going to win very many games. And that can't happen with Wentz at quarterback as well.
No, without a doubt. And you got to get these two gentlemen involved. Flat out.
And that's the other thing. The second part of this is that you're right. You got to get these two gentlemen involved, and particularly with Justin Jefferson in the first 2 games. What's been a bit concerning is that Jefferson hasn't been his usual awesome self. Now, a lot of that I put on J.J. McCarthy. There's other issues too, but just through 2 games, here's Justin Jefferson's stats. 7 catches, 125 yards, 1 TD on 13 targets, which seems like not nearly enough production, and football's going towards a guy who, depending on who you ask, is either the best wide receiver in football or the second best wide receiver in football. If your offense is struggling and can't move the ball, it seems like you've got to do something to get that player the ball as much as you can. That's going to help your offense move. The Vikings haven't been able to do that through 2 games. Now,
you need a Randy ratio of some sort. You got to target him at least 7 times.
Yes, that has to be a focus, that even if he doesn't look completely open, you've got to find a way to get him the ball, because Justin Jefferson can come down with contested catches. He can make tough catches that might not be, it might be a little high, a little low. They're away from the defender. Maybe a lot of wide receivers wouldn't catch them, but Justin Jefferson can catch them. And then getting the ball into Justin Jefferson's hands usually leads to positive gains and first downs.
Mm-hmm. And Jefferson has a gravity all his own, where he draws in defenders, whether double covered or triple covered. That helps the rest of the team. Right now we're without Jordan Addison again. But it helps everybody else. And the only way to maintain that gravity is that you feed him. And they're not doing that. And it hasn't.
And yeah, and this is the thing now. Last year, you got to be careful not to freak out too much on this, Dave, because when I looked at last year, Jefferson's production through 2 games, which were 2 victories for the Vikings, and everybody was praising the Vikings and saying that they look great. But in 2024, in his first 2 games, here was Jefferson's stats: 7 catches, 192 receiving yards, 2 TDs, targeted 13 times. So he was targeted the same amount of times, and a lot of that yardage was generated on a 97-yard bomb from Darnold, to catch and run from him to Darnold against San Francisco. So he had a slow start last year. I think the takeaway from this is, and even though with that slow start, he still caught 103 passes, over 1,500 yards, 10 touchdowns. So the takeaway here is that I think Justin Jefferson is going to get his this season. But still, KLC has got to find a way, whether it's motioning Justin Jefferson, using, stack bunch formations to give him a free release, creating some natural picks that aren't actual picks, get him a few wide receiver screens early in the game, see how that goes, get him involved early. Because look at what the Bengals, who they're playing tomorrow, did with Jamar Chase. In week 2, Chase had 5 targets, only 2 catches, 25 yards, 0 TDs. Against the Jags last week, targeted 16 times. 16 times. He got 14 catches, 165 yards, 1 TD. That is how you treat your best offensive player. You try to get him the ball, and the Vikings need to do that tomorrow, because again, getting the ball to Jefferson and getting positive gains is going to help out Carson Wentz and the Vikings offense. And Wentz, in his first start in a game that matters, like he said this week, in 3 years, give him some easy wins. Get the ball to Justin Jefferson. And the same thing applies to TJ Hockenson. We said earlier, you got one of the best pass catching tight ends in the NFL. Through 2 games, he's had 4 catches for 27 yards on 7 targets. That, again, is just not enough when you're paying a lot of money to a tight end who's one of the best receiving tight ends in the NFL. Find a way to get him the ball too. Playmakers can't make plays if they aren't getting targeted and aren't getting the ball. And the Vikings haven't been able to get the ball enough to Justin Jefferson and TJ Hockenson the first 2 games. And that might be another reason why we've had so many 3-and-outs, and we only scored 6 points against the Falcons on Sunday and only had 6 points through 3 quarters against the Bears, a week before. But get these 2 guys the ball. Find a way to do it, KC, because if you don't, we're going to be very miserable tomorrow against the Bengals as well.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. T-Bass. After Addison is back, Naylor has proven himself to be the number 3, which means Adam T, barring injury, should go to the bench. We'll see. Yeah, it should be.
Yeah, I don't.
Thanks,
yeah.
Anthony.
The
Diana Rossini says Harrison Smith is playing.
Well, Diana Rossini.
Off the list.
Well, is she right? She wasn't right about Aaron Rodgers to Minnesota.
And I just remembered a slide I forgot to load. Anyways, we'll get there.
Yeah. Well, let's go on to I'm done with that rant, but let's go on to he's back, and I'm talking about Cam Akers. Returning that's Ty Chandler,
Cam?
but
That's Ty.
But we know what you're getting at. But yeah, this week the Vikings signed Cam Akers back to the team, the third season in a row that he's joined the Vikings as the season is in progress. In 2023, we traded for him and got him in from the Rams. Last year, we got him traded for him from the Texans. This year, we didn't have to give up any draft picks for him. He was on the street, and we signed him as a free agent.
And he's wearing number 31 this season.
Well, yeah.
And if you want to see what he looks like in 31, there it is.
With Cam Akers, I think the Vikings had to do something about their running back depth because Ty Chandler and Aaron Jones are both on injured reserve. Chandler's going to miss at least the next three games, and Jones is going to miss at least the next 4. Other than that, you had Xavier Scott and Xavier Valade were the only other 2 guys besides Jordan Mason who were on the depth chart. So you had to do something about the depth at running back, and they got Akers. And I think this is a sensible move because Akers is not like a home run hitting threat as a running back, although his 58-yard run last year in Detroit in the season final was the longest run by a Viking all season. So there is that, but he's not a home run threat like Dalvin Cook was or Bijan Robinson is, that sort of thing. But he's got a lot of skills that make him a useful player. He, again, not a home run threat, but he knows how to read blocks, and he'll get the most out of what the running play, the blocking affords him. He can use his blocks and he'll get the most. He's not going to be a guy who gets a lot of negative gains. He's a very willing and I think very capable blocker in pass protection. That's important. You can trust him when he's in there to block guys and block them well if he has to. He's got very good hands, and he's a very good receiving threat out of the backfield. Also, he can play special teams. He can return kickoffs for you. He's did that in the past. So again, he doesn't have any elite traits at this point in his career, but he does a lot of things, I think, pretty solidly and well. He's a guy that you can feel can do a lot of things and do them well. And also because he's been in Minnesota for the past 2 years for a certain point of the regular season, he knows the playbook well. So Kevin O'Connell can be confident that if he has to play Akers, he's going to know where he needs to be and what he needs to do and when he needs to do it, which you wouldn't be able to say if the Vikings had signed another free agent running back off the street who had not played in the KOC offense the previous 2 years. So again, I'm kind of happy that they brought Akers back in because I think he's a pretty solid player and he's a very good teammate. And I would expect you'll see him maybe get 5 carries or so to give Jordan Mason a little bit of a breather. It's not going to be Xavier Scott getting that. It's going to be Cam Akers getting a little bit of playing time with the first team offense in there on Sunday. And let's see what he can do with that role.
Let's see. I don't know if you guys can hear. Merlin's been whining.
I cannot hear.
Come in. I got the curtains drawn, and he won't come through them, even though I've showed him how. Mm-hmm. He's down here with me. I'd love for him to get him on camera. Come here, Merlin.
He'd take up the whole camera.
But now it's having Cam Akers back is okay, cool.
Yeah,
I had nothing wrong with that, especially with 2, Ty Chandler and Aaron Jones on IR. That's fine. It's good. And I don't think he's going to get that many carries, but he could well get, a half dozen, if that. So we'll see.
Yeah, he's not going to get a lot of work. I think Jordan Mason's going to be getting, hopefully the Vikings are on the field enough that Jordan Mason gets 20, 25 carries on Sunday, because that'll mean that the offense has been generating first downs and scoring points, which it hasn't been able to do the previous 2 games.
Well, speaking of generating offense.
Let's get to the O-line. Yeah. We talked a lot. We always do about the offensive line, its struggles, the attempts to improve it. Dave on the show on many episodes. And so it's not unfair to say that the offensive line has struggled in the first 2 games of this season. And that is part of the reason why J.J. McCarthy has struggled and the Vikings offense has struggled. And that is disappointing because the Vikings invested a fair amount of cash resources into improving that offensive line, the interior anyway, with signing Ryan Kelly, the center, Will Fries for right guard, and then drafting Donovan Jackson to be the starting left guard. So the returns have been mixed right there. Donovan Jackson, PFF graded him very highly in the first game against Chicago, but graded him very lowly last week against Atlanta. Will Fries,
well deserved.
Yeah, Will Fries I think is their lowest graded right guard or guard in general at this point in the season after 2 games. Ryan Kelly's been graded highly, but he's not going to be playing tomorrow. So that's not great. I think that, and then you sent me a tweet earlier this week, about some former Viking offensive lineman, and it was Ezra Cleveland, Garrett Bradbury, and Ed Ingram. Those guys, according to PFF, and again, this is PFF, and it's the usual
2 weeks in.
Yeah, too small sample size. PFF grades are not the be all and end all, but they are at least one metric we can use to see how offensive linemen are doing. Well, they have, and you've got it up there, Ezra Cleveland. They got him at the 5th highest graded left guard in the NFL right now. Garrett Bradbury, they don't say anything about his run blocking, but 1st in pass blocking grade among centers in the NFL. And then Ed Ingram.
His problem was his pass blocking, not his run blocking while he was here.
That is correct. And then Ed Ingram, and don't fall out of your chair when you read this, was after 2 games the highest graded right guard in the NFL according to PFF. Now, the Vikings got rid of all these guys because they thought that they were the problem with the offensive line last year and why we got smoked, particularly by Detroit and the Los Angeles Rams in the last 2 games, which were losses and ended our season. But at what point, again, and early in the season, small sample size, we have to admit that, Will Fries is still trying to come back from that broken right leg. Maybe he's still a little bit rusty, but I think that's kind of an excuse if you're using that as one. But Christian Darrisaw has not played at all yet. That's a big loss. So there's been some issues there, and you've got Jackson, who's a rookie, and we expect there'll be some ups and downs with him at times throughout the season, as a lot of rookie offensive linemen have. But if the Vikings get to full strength at offensive line, if that ever happens, with Kelly in and Darrisaw back and the other 3 guys in there and healthy, and they're still not playing well, and meanwhile, Cleveland and Ingram and Bradbury continue to play pretty well with their new teams, at what point does offensive line coach Chris Cooper be considered culpable for these woes? You've talked about it before, Dave, but the Vikings offense has not been very good for a long time. And it hasn't been very good at all under KOC since he got to be a head coach as 2022. Cooper has been the offensive line coach that entire time. Again, at what time do you start looking at him being the problem and it's not the players that are really the problem? So if the offensive line doesn't get it together, I think KOC, as the season goes on, should start looking up his list of offensive line coach candidates and consider making a switch there at some point in time if we don't see some big improvement in the Vikings offensive line, considering the players they brought in and the money they spent on those players last off his season to fix this, and getting this guy, Keith Carter, brought him in to help. Maybe he is the guy who replaces Cooper if Cooper gets canned. And we talked about that in the past too.
Yes, we did. I started harping on this, especially last year, as everybody knows.
Yeah.
And we have too much talent along this O-line to not look at the coach. even right there with SKOL in there. SKOL, believe it or not, led the league in time to throw for PFF. And that is, did he give 2.5 seconds for the quarterback to throw before he lost his block? And he leads the league in that stat before he went out. Well, if he leads in 2.5 and the average for J.J. McCarthy, I think, is 2.9 seconds, then it comes down to maybe we should look at what we're calling for plays. It's not just the blocking. However, the blocking's a problem. We've got bang-up running backs with Mason and Aaron Jones that should have more yards than they do, but whether it's Brian O'Neill having a bad day, whatever it is, there should be a way to work around it that hasn't been done. Now, do I believe there's a problem with the O-line coach? I've been calling for it since last year. I believe there's a problem with the O-line coach. Kevin O'Connell's the one that hired him. And Kevin O'Connell admitted when he hired our defensive coordinator first year,
Ed
Donatel, that was a mistake that he didn't fire him midseason. Well, Kevin, did you learn from your mistake? Because there looks to be a problem with the O-line coach, or at least the results you're getting from him. So, hey, it is what it is. Norris Fias, don't put that on me. He wanted Harbaugh. Yeah. And Score North talked about that. What if Harbaugh would have become our coach, which wasn't going to happen because of certain back office deals, and they like to go opposite, and they wanted feel-good coach versus not. But Harbaugh always has a great offensive line. It's frustrating to me, Dave, who cares immensely about the big ground bellies. It should be fixed, and I'm sorry, but I think Cooper is the one that needs eyeballed specifically. Why hasn't this been fixed over the last 4 years? Because it should be. We're the Minnesota Vikings. We don't have to put up with this. How the Wilfs put up with this for the last decade. I just don't know. It's frustrating to Dave, and part of it is KOC. KOC's his boss. Fix it. So it's not rocket science. Big on big. Power. Do it. Oh, well.
And that's our O-line rant. The last thing we're going to get to this week in Vikingsland is you're going to talk about Max Brosmer just a little bit, and Carson Wentz. So Wentz starting tomorrow. KOC got asked about Max Brosmer being the backup this week, and the fact that he's a rookie who's never played in the NFL in a regular season game, and the thoughts about having an inexperienced backup quarterback behind Wentz. And KOC said, he had, as he usually says, he had utmost confidence in Max Brosmer and that he's prepared great. And he said that Brosmer is one play away from playing in an NFL regular season game. And that is actually a thing, Dave, because Wentz has had a number of seasons where he's missed time because of injuries. It happened in 2017 in Philly. It happened in 2018 in Philly. It happened in 2019 in Philly, and it happened in 2022 in Washington. So there is a chance that Wentz might not be able to, even though he's a starter, there's a chance you could see Max Brosmer playing. I hope as scary as that might be, because I don't think Kevin O'Connell or any of us want to see a undrafted rookie free agent quarterback playing in an NFL game that matters, but it's a possibility with Wentz's injury history. And, but which got me to thinking about the whole thing about, we've seen JJ McCarthy as a young, inexperienced quarterback in the NFL struggle through 2 games. And so what chances would Max Brosmer have if he's in a game to have any success at all when McCarthy was a top 10 pick and he's been really struggling as a quarterback, and he played at Michigan and he played against top competition in college football. He's really struggled at the NFL level. So how would a guy like Brosmer, who was never drafted and wasn't expected to make an NFL roster, what if he had to play? Like, what chance does he have to have any success at all if he had to play? I thought about that a bit. And one of the things about McCarthy that was a knock on him coming into the draft was that he didn't have a lot of college experience compared to some of his other peers like Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix and Caleb Williams, who had played a lot more football and thrown a lot more in their careers than McCarthy did. And scouts wondered if he needed, he just didn't have the reps, they thought, compared to them for them to be confident about what kind of a pro quarterback he could be and how ready he would be if he had to play. Well, I didn't put much stock in that at the time because, again, McCarthy was very successful at Michigan and played against top competition. But when you see how he played in the first 2 games, maybe there was something to that. Juxtapose that with Max Brosmer. McCarthy had thrown 713 pass attempts in his 3 years at Michigan. Brosmer, on the other hand, 4 years at New Hampshire, actually was 5, but he was injured for 1. 5 years at New Hampshire and then 1 with the Minnesota Golden Gophers. He threw 1,627 pass attempts. He completed 1,027 of them. J.J. McCarthy had 482 completions of his 713 attempts. So that's 545 more completions than McCarthy, 940 more pass attempts than McCarthy through his college career. And then in the preseason, McCarthy played 1 series, threw 4 passes. Brosmer played in all 3 games, and he threw 58 passes and completed 35 of them. So in college and even in preseason, Brosmer has faced a lot more live bullets and seen a lot more offensive defenses coming at him, trying to kill him, and been in a lot more different situations than McCarthy has. Now, I know it was at New Hampshire. That's FCS. It's an inferior competition in the time Brosmer was there compared to playing at Michigan and in the Big 12 and all of that sort of stuff. But it's still live game reps that Brosmer had, and he had a lot more of them than McCarthy, which makes me think maybe he wouldn't struggle as much as McCarthy has if he had to get in there, which you kind of saw in the preseason as well, where he looked very comfortable playing, again, against backups in a lot of cases and guys that didn't make NFL rosters, but he looked very comfortable. The Vikings offense moved pretty well under him. He made some great anticipation throws, showed pretty good touch on the ball. He was very effective. Would that translate to an NFL game when you're playing against starters? I wouldn't want to test that theory, but it does make you think about if Brosmer has to play, would he actually look a little bit better early on than McCarthy did because of all those reps that he's had at the college level and even in the preseason? Just a thought.
And it's a good thought. And as he's been, when we talk about McCarthy, he's being compared to Trey Lance in the whole idea of, hey, didn't play a whole lot. It was mainly a running game, had tons of potential, gets drafted too early. As T-Bass says, I think it was T-Bass, McCarthy was labeled a second rounder, but because of the quarterback tax, they go higher.
Mm-hmm.
And then first 2 years of Trey Lance are miserable, and he gets injured, and he gets injured, and he gets injured. And then you take the guy that was Mr. Irrelevant, not expected to make the team whatsoever, even as a backup, and you throw him in there, and holy shit, he can run the offense. And I'm referring to Brock Purdy. Can Max Brosmer do that with us? We saw a lot of good decision-making, a lot of good throws during preseason. He looks like the real deal. But like you said, he's playing against guys that are half of them are bagging groceries type thing right now. So would I like to see him out there? Yes. Do I wish Wentz an injury? No. But if Wentz fails otherwise and JJ McCarthy's not ready, oh, yes, I want to see Max Brosmer. Without a doubt, I want to see Max Brosmer. And I'm half tempted to right now because, JJ's out. JJ needs to work on stuff. Let him work on it. Let's see if Max Brosmer can do it. But if Wentz does not do well and we lose, say, the next 2 out of 3 games, we got all the time in the world this season to let Max Brosmer and JJ McCarthy battle it out. But I would like to see Max Brosmer do that. Because we get to the bye and we're sitting there under 500, and then with what we have after the bye, unless there's some sort of miracle, we'll be fighting with Chicago.
I don't want us to get to that point. So I'm still going to let's save that for if it happens. But just some thoughts about Brosmer.
You're the worrier.
I am.
I've been in a bad mood all week after last week's game.
You probably weren't the only Vikings fan, Dave, who was in a bad move.
All right. That's the end of theme 2. What comes after theme 2?
Theme 3, baby. And Drew Bunting.
Well, we have the Vikings versus the Bengals. And as Darren just said, we have Drew Bunting.
There's my base.
There you go.
Wow. Hello, everybody. Hello, 2 old bloggers, and hello to all the people in the chat. That's our game this week. That's what we're going to talk about. We got a lot to get to. How are you guys today?
Dave's in a bad mood.
Yeah, I get it.
O-line.
Vikings haven't lost yet, though, so.
Quarterback's playing lousy. Kevin O'Connell isn't coaching well. Fuck it.
I'm sitting here in the green room. You guys got me almost drinking, listening to you. I get
I've
the feedback. And, it's here we are, week 3. Cam Akers back. Going to put Rouse at left tackle, and you guys are talking about Brosmer being in. Who saw this happening?
Right, and it may not be Rouse. I'm hearing
whatever's going on.
Randall,
it's 2 weeks.
Because he has more experience.
Something I want to clear up real quick. I keep seeing it. I love the comments by T-Bass, except for one. T-Bass is a smart guy. And I'm going to mention one of his comments in my Key 2 segment because he mentioned something earlier that I have to give the thumbs up to. Very smart guy. He is wrong about the Michigan cheating thing with J.J. McCarthy. That's totally inaccurate. It's not even close to being the truth. It's wrong. When they got accused of sign stealing, it was week 4 or 5. All eyes were on Michigan. The next 7-8 weeks, McCarthy killed everybody, including Alabama in the Sugar Bowl and the national championship. The cheating thing and all that happened 2 months before he went on a roll. So it doesn't affect, that's not right. That's not accurate. And I want to point out because a lot of people believe that. I've seen it this week. Well, Michigan cheated. So JJ, no. He went on a big run after that was made public. He did. That does not have anything to do with the problems he's having. I want to throw that out before we get started because I feel that I am accurate with that. But I love T-Bass's talk about Wentz, his comments earlier. So I hope he's not mad at me. I just wanted to clear that up. I think he's a great commenter, as I do a lot of people in the chat. You got smart people in this chat. And you guys never told me that when I started doing this show that I have to talk to smart people. Because they're going to call me out on stuff. But I know J.J. McCarthy. I know Michigan. I follow him very closely. And that's just not true. Okay. Week 3 in Cincinnati, or in Minnesota. Cincinnati's never won in Minnesota. Let's start off with the inside the numbers. A tasty tidbit. They have never won in Minnesota. They lead the series 8-7. It's only the 16th time we played. They're AFC Central. We don't see them a lot. The last 2 times we played them, they've won 27-24 in overtime. Same score each game. Those were tough losses. I remember Vikings were pretty set up in those games to win, and they didn't. So since he's never won here, the Dalvin Cook fumble, I do remember that. And then I think, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Browning quarterback the last one.
Yes,
wasn't he the quarterback?
Mm-hmm.
He did.
He's throwing his helmet to the sideline saying, you guys shouldn't have cut me. Whatever, dude. You're Jake Browning. That's why we cut you.
For 3 quarters, he looked like he gave us plenty of data on why they cut him. And then the 4th quarter, everything flipped.
Well, but did you hear the story this week of why they cut him?
No.
I did not.
Mike Zimmer had told him, you have earned the backup job. You are going to be the backup next year. Then Rick Spielman drafted Kellen Mond and then cut Browning and to spite Mike Zimmer.
Interesting.
That's why.
That is interesting stuff there. You know, you don't want to shut the door on Kellen Mond. Big time talent right there, you know. I want to give up on him. Interesting tidbit there, Dave. The over-under on this game is 41.5. It started Monday at 47.5. Usually, like I said, if I was a betting guy, you follow the lines. You don't usually see a 6-point drop, Darren, between a Monday and a Saturday. But because the quarterback thing, it's down to 41.5. I'd probably hit the over on that. Vikings are favored by 3. Lots of movement on the line in this game, and this is a kind of a shoulder shrug game for me. I went in depth. I've been looking at research stuff all week, and at the end of the week, I'm looking at Toonces going, it's hard to say how's this thing going to go. And they're a soft 2-0. Let me start by saying that. For everybody to think the Bengals are 2-0, we're 1-1. They are the softest 2-0 I've seen in a long time. As a matter of fact, you want to start out with a tasty tidbit? We get going?
Yes.
Tasty tidbit. Here we go. This is the first time since 1940. And Dave will remember that. That's the year he was born. Since 1940, this is the first time a team has started 2-0, Darren, that has rushed for 50 yards or less in each of the first 2 games. 85 years. Chase Brown isn't on track. They got a problem with their running game. I imagine they're going to try to fix it this week because they saw the tape with the Falcons. The problem with the Bengals is they're going to become one-dimensional, Darren. That is a soft 2-0 start. I watched both games in their entirety. The Browns probably should have won that game. And then the Jaguars last week, if their offensive coordinator figures out if you could throw it on the middle of the field, if the Jags coordinator had the brains to throw it in the middle of the field, they'd probably walk away with that game. But I don't know who the coordinator is in Jacksonville, but maybe Chris Cooper could go do that next year.
I'd assume Liam Cohen is calling the plays for the Jags.
The Jags, man, there was so many times they had that game, and Browning threw 3 picks.
Yes,
because that's the kind of quarterback he is, which gets us right into the first big key of the game, Darren. And that's got to be the injuries. You guys talked about it. We don't need to get into it too much with the quarterback situation. We both know both offensive lines have really struggled this year. Vikings have given up 9 sacks. Cincinnati's given up 6 sacks. McCarthy's been sacked 18% of the time. That's number 1 in the NFL. Only Cam Ward has been sacked more, been taking way too many sacks. This is the second worst offense, Minnesota, this week at 226 a game, playing the third worst offense, the Bengals, at 245 a game. So you got second worst against the third worst in offense going up against each other. Maybe that's why the line fell to 41.5. I want to mention this, what T-Bass said. When you talk about Wentz, the aspect of he's seen a lot more than JJ. And in a game like this, that means a lot. He has seen a lot more defensive shifting, where they're going to line up defensively, the base stuff, the blitz stuff. Wentz has a lot more experience with that. Now, he's only been here 20 minutes. I don't know how much of the playbook he's going to know, but at least when you look at advantage and disadvantage, he has the advantage over J.J. McCarthy. Some of those plays J.J. made, Wentz wasn't going to make because he wouldn't get himself in that position. He has more experience. Darren, you mentioned, 94 games or something?
94 starts, yeah.
I don't know how much of the playbook he's gonna know by this week, which is going to hinder him a little bit. But he's going to see a lot more than McCarthy. And McCarthy's still learning, granted. But when you look at Wentz, this comes down to the quarterbacks. And you were right talking about that in your first theme. When you look at these quarterbacks, they're two different styles. When you look at Burrow and Browning, Burrow's your drop back, progression, read the shift. The progression falls off. The guy falls out of zone, goes to man midstream. Burrow's going to read the progressions and make the right throw. Browning, just to let people know what the difference is. Browning's the guy takes a 7-step drop, or looks out and sees Chase one-on-one with a corner, knows it's going to be single coverage, nobody over the top, and he goes back and throws it, regardless of the play called, and hope that Higgins and Chase comes down with it. That's why he has a lot of picks, because he goes off script, and that is the type of quarterback he is. He's just going to throw it up and hope his guys make a play. And when you got Chase, when you have Jamar Chase, that's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea when you got Justin Jefferson. Kevin O'Connell, yo! Come on now. Your stars got to make plays. Like Darren said, you got to get them in position to make plays. You have to let your big guys make big plays. And Browning's more of a guy, he sees single coverage Sunday with Chase, he's throwing it to him. I guarantee you, no matter what the play is called, he'll just chuck it up there and hope Chase can make a play, because you're not going to do that with Chad Beebe, but you're going to do it with Jamar Chase. Big difference there. So the quarterback's probably going to come down to who plays smarter football. I don't have a problem with going into this game with Wentz. I think he's going to. The only problem I have is the knowledge of the playbook of what they're going to run and what KOC is going to let them run. It'll be interesting to see how that. If the Vikings are sluggish and can't move the ball, they're going to have a problem. Also, talk about a schism. If the Vikings are sluggish, can't move the ball, and down by a couple scores, and Jamar Chase has 10 catches for 125 and a touchdown at halftime, and Jefferson has 1 catch for 9 yards, the gloom is going to set in, because they're competitive, man. Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase want to outdo each other every single time they play. Same school, same background. Those guys are competitive-ass players. And if you don't get JJ in the game early, JJ is there's going to be some gloom over there that you don't need. You don't need that going on when you're losing. Like Michigan losing that game a couple weeks ago, not only were they getting outplayed, Darren, there was arguing on the sideline. You can't when it goes to that level, it's over. It is over, baby. So they have to keep JJ on par, at least. But you can't let Chase take the day from JJ. You can't. That's a big, big thing here, because you don't want him gloomy on the sideline. Maybe going off a little on the deep end, but that's how I feel. Before we get to key 2, did you know this is the first time since 1998 2 teams are starting their backup quarterback week 3 after starting their regular the first 2 weeks, starting their backup quarterback week 3 and playing each other? The last time it happened was 98. Huh?
I know it now.
You know
who was
98. It was Minnesota and the Lions. Can you name the quarterbacks that started week 3? I'll give you the starters. No, you give me the Viking starter and the replacement. You should know this. It's pretty easy.
Well, it would have been Brad Johnson would have been the starter. Randall Cunningham started for him on the Lions side.
Yes,
I'm thinking the starter was
Darren's rolling.
Oh God,
rolling. I keep those doobies rolling.
Charlie Batch had to be involved there somehow for the Lions, but
yes, you got it. Batch came in 4. All you need is a starter now. Look at Darren.
I'm drawing a blank.
North Drew, Darren, and Dave, the 3 Ds. sounds like his high school
Darren,
report card.
I had it written in my notes. Nobody's getting the Hatch thing. Nobody's going to get Charlie Batch, and you got it, dude. The starter was Scotty Mitchell. Remember they got him in that deal, and he's supposed to be the next.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, this is
And
the first
Another
game.
number 11.
First
He
game
was
in
in
27
97.
years. First game in 27 years that this has happened. And that's kind of rarity. So adds a whole new storyline to the whole thing. Wentz is wearing number 11, so let's hope we get our roll on. Okay, we're going to get into key number 2 right here.
Hey, that's 2 weeks in a row, Drew.
Huh.
We got your trivia. I got it last week.
Yeah.
Darren gets it this week. That's called
I think that breaks Ted Glover's record of 1. Actually, Ted did. You know who did good with trivia was Tyler Fornes. Every time we had him on, he aced it. Every single time.
Dude's encyclopedia.
Yeah, especially with college football knowledge of players going from college to pro. I asked him some obscure thing about some guy from the 90s, and he said, Montana State. And I'm all, what? That guy knows his transitional players, but he studies the draft. So we kind of, guys who study the draft are going to know that. But that was really good, Darren. Everybody give an applause to Darren. Darren, I want to know that you're drinking that orange juice? Darren, you're drinking that orange juice. That sounds like a Little King show. Darren drinking the orange juice. Was there something in that orange juice last Sunday night? Come on.
No.
Oh, I couldn't drink whiskey fast enough.
What
do we got?
Both, brother.
What do we got? What do we got for key 2?
We have.
I have, since both offenses suck. I got this in my notes. Which defense will step up? Bengals only have 3 sacks on the year, 2 by one guy. Darren, you know where I'm going with this. He hasn't been mentioned on the show yet, but this could be the game changer for the entire game. You got probably the best edge guy you're going to face all season, maybe besides that Myles Garrett. They're going to play against him. But Garrett lines up on the left-hand side, so that'll be O'Neill's problem. Right side defensive end, Trey Hendrickson is the best.
Leads the league in sacks.
He's the best edge guys the Vikings are going to see. Nobody better. You cannot let him ruin the game. And I went back and looked at his past stats against backup players. Naturally, they're going to be better. He had like 3-4 sack games against backups. He thrives on backup. He never played a backup where he didn't get 1 or 2 sacks, ever. That guy, I don't know whether, Dave, you're an offensive lineman. You played O-line. I don't know if Hendrickson's mumbling under his breath about their wife, or he's mumbling under the breath about, I mean, D linemen, they talk. You know that. You played O-line. Know they mumble.
Yes. So, and we try to get in, especially as an edge, into the quarterback's head. Not just the tackle in front of us, but we try to get in the quarterback's head. And you're talking smack with him as well. And you're going to hit him, even if it's late. You'll take the flag, whatever. You're going to hit him, and you want to get in his head. And to go against a backup, he's going to be, one, questioning himself to start off with, because he's a backup, and he's like, oh, my God. And then it sort of adds that extra adrenaline or the drool coming down the edge of his mouth, because all he sees is, lunch sort of deal. I've always said, Drew, you can attest to this, the best sound for a defensive end is hearing the air leave the quarterback's lungs as they take him to the turf. We lived for that. Hendrickson is going to live for that. And whoever's playing left tackle has got his day planned out for him. It's going to be the roughest day, whether it's Christian Darrisaw coming back in the first game, whether he's 50-50 to whether come back. I think it's mental now. Or Brandell or Rouse or whoever's over there, they're going to have a huge day ahead of them.
Right. It is going to be a huge day. And, they talk about chip blockers, guys coming in, chipping on the defensive end. You don't need a chip blocker. You need to tell Oliver, you need to block the entire game, because he is going to destroy either Brandell or Rouse. He's going to destroy him, and you need to help him. I'm not talking about a chip as you run out and do a 5-yard dig route. I'm talking about blocking him. You got to block
double team. Yes.
Yeah, no, that's what you got to do. You can't let Hendrickson beat you. And I looked at the rest of the Bengals line, Darren and Dave. It's not that good. They don't pressure the quarterback. It's all Hendrickson. So the game plan should be easy. Matter of fact, the Bengals, if you watch them against Tampa Bay, they're a lot better on the right side of the defensive line than they are the left. So I'm expecting if Kevin O'Connell does his homework and Wes Phillips, maybe they'll run most of the stuff to the right-hand side away from Hendrickson. Throw it away from him. Run it away. Run it at the perimeter. Run Mason on the right side. A lot of stuff should be on the right side because the left side with B.J. Hill and Hendrickson, I'm telling you, it's way, way higher talent-wise than the left-hand side of the Bengals. But their overall defensive line has problems. It does. It has problems pressuring the quarterback. That's another good advantage for Wentz. They don't generate a lot of pressure. It's mostly Hendrickson. So that is a big part of my key, too. Make somebody else beat you. You got to make somebody else beat you because that guy is a madman back there.
Well, and if you mentioned coaching, plan it out right, KOC. That's sure. Possibly one of the issues. But, yes, do that. Listen to old Drew.
Got some tidbits I'll throw out there. Vikings, I'll get to that in my summary. That's not a good tidbit. Vikings defense has only allowed 3 touchdowns in 2 games. That's rather good, considering our offense is stunking up so much. Offense, 7 for 23 on first downs. Vikings. Also, the Vikings have had 23 drives, and 13 have been 3 and out. You could take those 2 tidbits and do what you want with them, but that's a big part of why they're one. They're probably fortunate to be 1-1 with those numbers. You're 7 for 23 on third down. You should probably be 0-2. They have to clean that up. I can get right into the game plan right now, and then I'll take some feedback from you guys because I really want to know your in-depth talk on the game plan. My game plan is, and it let's face it, this is kind of a must-win for the Vikings. You know, they go across the pond. Where they go in the next 2 weeks? They're out of the country. They got to win this game. The offense, now number 1 on my sheet, is the offense of the Vikings needs to wake up. You want to know their numbers in the first quarter? Check this out. In first quarter of the Bears game, first quarter of the Falcons game. Vikings, 4 possessions. Time of possession, 8.5 minutes. They ran 13 plays for 21 yards. Their longest play in the first quarter of this season has been a 6-yard run by J.J. McCarthy. 6-yard run. They have 21 yards.
T-Bass, J.J. McCarthy standing out.
That T-Bass is awesome. He gives some great comment. They have to figure out a way, and I'll take some feedback from you guys after I'm done with these other points on the starting fast because I don't know what those play calls are at the beginning of a game. I was talking to Darren about this before the show started, and I think this is a big part of it. When you watch football, and especially in hockey, it happens a lot in hockey. When you watch football or those such as a sport, you have got to dictate the play at some time. A lot of these games are won by the team that dictates the flow, dictates the play, implements their game plan. You got one team dictating how the game's going to go and the other team just dealing with what they're dealing with, getting 7 of the 8 quarters the Vikings have played this year, the other team has dictated the play. I'm sorry, you can't win games like that. And it happens in hockey a lot when a team's peppering your goalie, you chip it out, and then the same team comes in and peppers your goalie, then you chip it out, then the same team comes in and peppers your goalie. All you're doing is surviving. You can't just survive because that's how teams lose. You can see it in a lot of football games. Who is going to dictate how this game's going to go? And KOC's been kicked in the teeth the last 2 weeks with the starts. Chicago kicked him in the ass, and especially Raheem Morris and the Falcons came out on offense and defense and kicked KOC right in the nuts, right in the onions. They did. You got to dictate the play. You can't just stand there and take what the other team's giving you. I'm shocked after 2 weeks that we start football games the way we do.
Well, he said on K-Fan on his interview that, people talk about scripting the first 15 or 20 plays or whatever it is. He goes,
script better. You got to script better then.
Well, that he doesn't. He only will script like the first 5.
I saw an
If
interview
that's the
with.
case, you need to script more.
Okay, well, that's understandable. In the past, when he has had scripted starts, he does pretty well.
Right.
I listened to Justin Jefferson probably an hour after the game in the locker room. And one of the reporters said, well, there seems to be a lot of energy tonight in this building with the fans, Jared Allen in the prime time. The energy was electric. It was thick. What is going on? You know what Justin Jefferson said? You can have all the energy you want. If you don't execute plays, it doesn't matter. That's what he said. And I timed this interview. It was like 5 minutes and 11 seconds. 4 times Justin Jefferson said we got to play better or start better, not just play. 4 times. 4 times he directed the questioning back to, we have to start better. We have to play better from the opening kickoff. But that stuck in my head as I was watching him talk. He said, have all the energy you want, but it doesn't matter if you're not going to make the plays. And I thought that was perfect. That was a perfect thing. He's right.
We talked about it with, especially under Zimmer, how he would do the why are we letting them score the first drive every time? And it was because he was scripting, he was testing stuff. He'd watched, the film and game plan and all that, and he's testing stuff. What works, what doesn't? What have they adjusted to this week? And then after that, he'd come back in and make adjustments sometimes, and we go on to win. KOC needs to do the exact same thing. Plan for the game. Look at what they do, what a tendency is. What are you going to do to hopefully defeat that? And test those first handful of plays and then adjust from there. Now, if JJ is saying, yeah, but we're doing that, but our guys aren't performing, they aren't stepping up. This guy missed his block. This guy dropped a pass.
I think that's what he was saying without dropping.
Yeah.
He's not going to drop names. He's not going to say, he said, we as a group got to start the game better. He said, whatever happens in the second, third, fourth quarter, that just happened. But if you don't, he's basically saying if you don't start with some kind of spark, with some kind of dictate your offense, some kind of energy with the playmaking, you're shit out of luck. And I really, really am glad I'll be able to talk about that because that's been on my mind all week. He does really well during the interviews. All the Vikings did. My next point is a quick point. How are the Vikings secondary going to deal with Chase and Higgins? Because you can't let them be X factors. My third part, Cincinnati, I've already heard their game plan. Even though they've rushed for less than 50 yards the first 2 weeks of action, Chase Brown is really struggling, 2.4 per carry. They are going to try to implement the run game, Darren, because of what Robinson did to us last week. And Algier, 218 yards or something. Cincinnati has seen that, and they know they have to get their run game on track because it is crap right now. I think the Vikings need to know that they're going to try that before they get in the desperation mode of throwing it up to Chase deep on the right side. They're going to try to run the football. They're going to try to copy the Falcons' game plan. Vikings cannot let them do that. This is what I think the Vikings get this done, but we can talk quarterbacks, left tackle, defense, secondary. By the way, Bengals are missing a couple guys back there. I think the Vikings, to get this game, Darren and Dave, they just got to play better. I know that sounds really generic and vanilla, but they have 16 penalties in 2 games. 16! You can't have that in 2 games. 8 penalties per game. They've turned the ball over 5 times. I think they just need to settle down. They weren't like that last year. They weren't doing those penalties like that last year. They need to settle down, run their game, get settled, but come out and punch somebody in the face. Play from the beginning. Like I said, I don't mean to have a vanilla answer. Not a lot of information because I don't know what's going to happen in this game, like Darren said. But you have to get out there and you have to just take care of business. Don't play stupid. Just play your game. The quarterback will work. That Browning guy, he's going to give you a couple. Vikings have no interceptions so far this year. They had like 4 last year.
Which is astounding
by weeks.
The defense is known for turnovers.
I think they're going to get one this week. I think Mason's going to rush for 100 yards, and I think they're going to squeak by, and you're going to love my prediction. How about the Vikings 27-24? Turning the tables on their sorry asses for once. We owe these guys. And we owe Browning. And we owe the fans a win. You cannot come out and get dismantled like that for a second week in a row, can you?
And Jim Marshall.
And Jim Marshall.
Honoring him this week.
Yeah, you can't let that happen. I just think the Vikings just play smarter, play better. I know that doesn't sound like much, but there's shakeups all over the field for both teams. Cincinnati is beatable. Their offensive coordinator apparently doesn't know how to throw the ball across the middle of the field in Jacksonville. Jacksonville's offensive coordinator lost in that game. What I'm saying is Cincinnati's not special. But if the Vikings let them come out and dictate the play, Zach Taylor and offensive coordinator Dan Pitch are going to put the Vikings in the same problem that the Falcons put them in last week. Don't sit back and take it. You got to be aggressive. That's my report. I'll listen to you. Give me some feedback.
A few things that clearly, to me, this game is largely about a couple of things. One is Wentz. How is he going to play? He can't just play okay. I don't think that's going to be good enough to cut it. And like we talked about, knowledge of the playbook, is that going to be a factor? How much is that limiting him? He's got a lot of experience, should be able to read defenses better than McCarthy, but I just don't know what to expect from him in this game because he hasn't started a meaningful NFL game in a long time. I don't know what 32-year-old Carson Wentz is going to give you. I hope it's going to be a lot, but if he's got to play, I said, solidly at least. Very good would be even preferable. Then the Vikings have a chance. If he plays just kind of okay, I don't think the Vikings win this game because they're not going to be able to be effective enough on the offense. And part of that is going to be how the Vikings block Hendrickson. Normally one guy can't wreck a game, but I think Hendrickson has that ability to wreck a game. And if the Vikings have to if they can't get him blocked and he's forcing Wentz to get the ball out before Wentz wants to, that's going to lead to the lack of execution that Justin Jefferson talks about on a lot of offensive plays, particularly the passing plays. So that's a big key. If they can't block Hendrickson, it's going to be, I'm not very enthusiastic about our chances of winning because that's going to impact Wentz's effectiveness and the Vikings offensive effectiveness. And the other thing is, people have been talking about, the Vikings when McCarthy's having troubles holding on to the ball too long, getting sacked a lot, offensive line is leaky. KOC has got to, get shorter passes. Where's the slants? Where's the screens? All that sort of thing. Guys, I don't think the Vikings offense, the identity of the offense, the Vikings offensive identity in the whole time that KOC has been here has not been the short game. They have their quarterbacks hold on to the ball a little bit longer. They're hunting for big plays down the field. There's pros to that. There are cons to that. The first two games in this 2025 regular season, we have seen a lot of cons to that. So I don't know if I think our offensive identity is not based on that short game, the quick stuff, the easy completions. That's not what we haven't done that a lot the whole time KOC has been in here. That's not what this offense does well. They don't do it a lot. And so I'm not really convinced that they're going to do it a lot tomorrow. And if they do, I'm not convinced that they'll be all that effective doing it.
Great.
So
point.
I think
That's
they're going to be effective. They're going to be effective. They're going to have to block down and give Wentz the time to be able to survey the field and hunt those downfield shots that they did with Darnold last year, even though he got sacked a lot at times. That is the KOC offense. If you're expecting something different, I think that you're going to be sorely disappointed tomorrow.
Let me add something quick to that because I had it in my notes. And again, you just brought up something from my note that I should have brought out. We don't want to be sitting here in the fourth quarter, Darren, going, why is Jake Browning threw so many passes long on this game, at least 25 yards or more, and we haven't? Well, I don't want to be saying that. I don't want to be saying that Browning's outgunning him on the long plays. You're exactly right. You gotta at least try to test them deep. Because everything else is going to be, you know what I'm saying? You can't play wuss ball when it comes to that. I'm glad you brought that point up because Browning is going to, those offensive coordinator and the head coach for Cincinnati has said publicly, we're not changing anything. playbook because people think backup quarterback automatically you're going to run it. Dan Pitch, the offensive coordinator for the Bengals, has said we're not changing anything. He's going to sling it everywhere, just like our game plan is not changing. So you're right. You have to at least show some kind of stretching the field. I mean,
and as you and I talked this morning, Drew, either yesterday or today, that the short game requires timing and guys being in rhythm and the whole works to make it work. And if it's not practiced and it's not done well, all the time, that doesn't exist. And we obviously have timing and all those sorts of issues so far this season. So just by shortening the drop from 7 steps to 5 or 3 doesn't necessarily mean success.
Good point. That's a really good point.
And if teams, if teams know that or have an inkling that you're going to try to do that stuff, maybe the Bengals defensive philosophy will be, let's jam the wide receivers up at the line of scrimmage, throw off that timing because we think they're going to want Wentz to get some early completion short. We're going to, run a couple of stunts, and we're going to gamble that our defensive line, or basically Trey Hendrickson, can affect the passer before the Vikings wide receivers beat that press coverage and are able to have enough time to make us pay for that. I think the Bengals are going to play into that game defensively and see if the Vikings can handle that.
Right.
They have not been able to do the first 2 games for the most part.
Especially
and hey, if you hand it off to Jordan Mason and he gets 7-8 yards a pop consistently, that could help a lot.
200 yards during the day and eats up clock.
We've been saying that. We say that about the running game. We say it for 6 years. If we can get 8 yards on first down running the ball, we're going to win. And then it comes to Sunday and it's -1 yard and it's 2nd and 11. Every time. That's what happens. But does it not happen a lot? We say if they can get a lot of yards on first down, then, and most of the time the Vikings this year have been 2nd and long. They have to dictate some kind of game plan. Do something. The meme with the guy with the stick poking at the thing? Have you seen that? Do something. KOC, Atlanta just came out and kicked him in the nads. He didn't do anything. You got to bounce back with some vengeance, man. Go Screaming for Vengeance. Who had that album? Darren, you're the rock guy. Come on, no, Judas Priest, the great Judas Priest. They come out screaming for vengeance, man. Come on.
I was never a big Judas Priest fan, so
I'm not either. But I know that album. I scored pretty heavy with that album. I did really well, so I like that album.
Well, we know your final words there, Drew. Screaming for vengeance. Darren, any final words?
No, sir. I think I've talked plenty as it is.
And what do we say?
We say, SKOL Vikings, baby. Thanks for watching.
SKOL Vikings.
Do something. That's what I'm going to say.
Like, subscribe, and ring the bell. And rate us on your favorite podcast aggregator. Darren and Dave, thank you for watching this episode of Two Old Bloggers. We look forward to seeing you on every show on the new Vikings First and SKOL. You can find our podcast as part of the Fans First Sports Network. Sports takes for the fan, from the fan. SKOL, everybody!